Hello everyone, and welcome to Homemakers Radio. I hope you get a few things done while you listen today. I don't have much to show you, so you can just listen and get on with it. And this is designed for you to walk or work or rest and listen. And today I'd like to welcome you to the manse, and I'll show you my teacup. Okay, so I'll use this as an opportunity to answer one of the recent comments that came in, and that is, where do I get them and how do I store them? Well, lately I have been getting these at Home Goods or TJ Maxx, which is also an affiliate of Marshall's and Ross, and TJ Maxx Home Goods is absolutely pretty good. And the reason that I switched over to these, they'll always be a little heavier than the antiques, and I quit buying the antiques because they started to become collectibles, and I mean, a lot of people still use them, and I have a couple. I gave the antiques over to my daughter because she likes to use them, but these are dishwasher safe, and that's why I buy them. And then I store them in a china cabinet or china hutch because they do tend to get, if you're displaying them on the shelf, they're going to get dust in there. So it's nice to have a china cabinet with a closing door that has a glass window so you can see them. Sometimes you can get one with a light in it. And I remember in the 1980s, kids, everyone that got married for their home, wanted a table with a matching china hutch, and you could go into the furniture stores and there they were. The table and the hutch always came as a set. And so I've always liked having one, and also you can get a little corner one for your kitchen where you maybe put some more hardy daily wear type of dishes in it. And I could go on and on about the importance of having one of those, and because it's the most protective way to store them. You can often get something that hangs on the wall or sits on top of a little desk or a table that has doors that open and shut, and just create your own. But I think it's just the best way to store these things. And I will show you a picture sometime of mine, or just do a broadcast in front of my cabinet. It's only 1 teacup deep, but it looks like there's a lot of teacups in there. But so, ladies, I want to get on with it today. And yesterday or the day before, I was on doing a broadcast for you and discussed the fact that the Queen of Sheba had gone to visit Solomon, and we had done this in our ladies' Bible class, and we were studying the benefits of herbs and studying them in biblical reference, and came across this reference to spices of the Queen of Sheba, that she brought spices, and looked up all the value that they were and how they were often used for trade, or when you gave someone spices, it was a great gift because of their value in ways of healing and also in nutrition and many other things. And so we had been discussing cloves that day, and I gave you a link for that to go and look that up. And also I wanted to discuss something that we had done before, and I believe if you go back to my earliest videos, we had done before the common phrases in the Bible that we use today, that we still use today. And our culture is being lost because, of course, if you get into the state education, public education, they're not using a lot of those phrases. Once in a while, a newscaster will let one slip and not know that it came from the Bible, or that it was in the Bible. A lot of these may have been common sayings of the culture around them, and so was entered into the record as a common saying. We think it came from the Bible. Might not have been invented by the writers, or done for that reason, but was common and still are common. In the story of this Queen of Sheba, she said, "Oh Solomon, I had heard about you and your wisdom and the happiness of your citizens, but I didn't believe it till I saw it for myself. I didn't believe it till I saw it with my own eyes." So we say that, don't we? We still use that phrase. It was an ancient phrase. I didn't I have to see it to believe it. Or I didn't believe it till I saw it for myself, or I'd have to see it with my own eyes. And then she said, and behold, the half has never yet been told. So it was even greater than she imagined, greater than she had heard. And so we still say that, don't we? We say, and ladies, if you feel you missed out on something because you weren't homeschooled, I will be happy to do that for you. And this is your little homeschool lesson. And it helps in the home, and it helps in your life. She said, the half has never yet been told. And I told you about that song, The Half Has Never Yet Been Told, and I posted it last time. And but we still say that. We say, that's not the half of it. Well, they didn't tell you the whole thing. Or the other side of the story, the other half, and there's more to the story than that. And so we still use these. Another thing I discussed as far as homemaking goes is going the second mile, and today I'll use it in application to getting ready. That's the first thing you want to write down on your little list is prep, P-R-E-P, because it isn't just bathing and getting dressed up and fixing your hair and drawing on your face. It's preparing your mind, and it's also preparing your list to get ready, all the things that you need to do that are the most important, and also maybe your stretch exercises. And the second mile for me was I was tuning into one of these 5-minute exercises online, and I noticed that at the end of one exercise, there was another little video saying this one is coming up, and then a little bell would ring, and there'd be a few seconds before the next exercise began. So I decided to go the second mile and see how many of the movements I could get in before she actually started the next one. And that to me was my second mile. I decided to just put in a little bit more than necessary. And it's the same with when your preparation. Anything that you're doing, go the second mile, and you'll be awfully glad you did. I think that sometimes opportunities come to you to be influential, or to be hospitable, or to care for someone in your home, your own family, or to do good when you have gone the second mile with caring for yourself, because you're showing that you think enough of other people to get dressed up for them. And when they say, Grandma or Mima, why do you get dressed up every day? I'll say, I do it for you, because I want you to have a nice lady around to look at. Or I'll say something like, I'm doing it because these are my servants' clothes, or something like that. These are my taking care of the family clothes. And so, and I also discussed last time that the best way to serve your country is to be strong in your values and your faith, because if your family, if your children are all on board about what's right and what's wrong to do, or and to be guarded about what they believe, and to always check it out and see if it's true, check it out in the Bible, check it out in other places of authority, that it's going to be harder to infiltrate them. And often when a country needs to be defended, already the infiltration has taken place. Somebody has gone in and weakened the people with some kind of false narrative, false report, false belief, until they don't care anymore, and then it's very easy to come in, take over them, and nobody's going to have to defend the country because they don't even know they're being taken over. So in my opinion, an observation, if your children are not going to be easily led out of their home or into doctrines that are false, it's going to be harder to infiltrate and to take over their minds, and then your country is a lot safer. So if you want to defend your country, then you need to train up your family and get your own mind straightened on a lot of things, so you don't fall for everything. And I remember there was an era in the 1960s in which the parents did their very best to refute the false doctrines that were coming out of the universities at the time. And a lot of these nice farmers in the Midwest were prospering, and so they wanted their children to have a better life than they did, maybe learn some, something a little bit more, and sent them to the universities only to have them not come back to run the farm, but stay and develop a false philosophy of life. And to this day, some of those people in their, I guess, 60s and 70s now that were subjected to that kind of teaching, false doctrine, have had troubled lives. It's so sad that a whole generation was infiltrated like that. So we need to be aware and need to be very skeptical of everything that lures us, not just the children, but us, away into false doctrine. And I did discuss also the idea of good character, and we were reading. I hope that you're not bored with this, because I wanted to keep reading, and it was the Fascinating Girl by Helen Endelin, which of course got trashed and smeared years later, and especially over the web, warnings going out about what a terrible book it is. But as I have read it so far, do you find any objection to it? And it was how to be kind and good and gentle, and especially for young girls. And I have been reading another book addressed to 15-year-old girls, and decided that this year I'm going to identify as 15. and I'm going to live it. I'm going to do all the projects in that book and be 15 and identify as that. And so I'm going to read some more of this, because last time we discussed about how it's very dangerous to develop a tendency to be subservient to people, to always be thinking more of them than of yourself, and wanting to please other people to the extent that you go overboard in thinking that it makes you a nice person and that they will like you better and accept you better and quit treating you with disdain. That's not how it works. And she talked about how the lack of self-dignity is in placing oneself in the position of pleading or begging. If we could have learned that when we were younger and got ourselves out of a lot of problems by just walking away from someone had put us in a position to be at a disadvantage or take something from us that was rightfully and lawfully ours, or to harm the family in some way, instead of pleading or begging, we should have just shut the door on them. And don't reduce yourself to an inferior position. Now, I did not read this part yesterday, so I want to, and remember I said don't belittle yourself to other people. Don't say, well, I'm just so dumb. That's a very bad thing to do. So I wanted to, in spite of the fact that it teaches to be gentle, not to, I have in the past lectured you about these hasty, sharp replies, sharply saying something right after a person's finished talking and just jumping in and saying something that's contradictory or sharp and disagreeable. And you can disagree in a gentle way, but of course, there's always the time when it comes and you're not prepared and you say something, but at least you'll know. So she does say there are times, however, when we as human beings do need to rise up and defend ourselves against offenses or improper treatment. Now, I'm afraid that having been a preacher's wife for 50 years, I used to listen when I was younger to preachers who would say that the preacher's wife just has to be patient with everybody and not respond, not talk back to anything, and yet many of them, unfortunately, have been maligned or treated badly or had things taken from them and just treated with less dignity, and we're told, well, you just let people get away with that. But that's abuse, and that's wrong, and we really need to have preachers' wives training. Well, just come here and I'll give it to you. Because this paragraph just says it all, and I really like this, and we could if I had a class and I was teaching you, even if you weren't in a church, but you were having problems with this particular issue of being smeared, maligned, mistreated, taken advantage of, talked about, I would have a little play. We'd role play the right way and wrong way to do it. But there are times, however, when we as human beings do need to rise up and defend ourselves against offenses or improper treatment. I am speaking of the times when we have been criticized unfairly, insulted, or misjudged too far. What was it I heard somebody say not long ago? She said she would have just ignored it and walked away, but it was too important to let the person believe that thought. And it was, you always, I don't know what it was exactly. And she said, no, I don't always. I said it once 2 years ago or something, but I don't always say that. And she corrected the person, because sometimes they'll stereotype you. If they heard you or saw you do something once, they'll stereotype you, or they'll remember some weird little thing. And I remember having a tea gathering for some people and had little tables around the house, and my children and I were having fun serving everyone. And I said something like, if you'll just let me, we'll remove your teacup and take it to the kitchen. You don't need to go into the kitchen, because there was just too many people and it was a small area. Years later, someone from that gathering said, oh, you're the lady that won't let people go to your kitchen, and she just totally labeled me. And I corrected her. I said, no, that was just for that one time, because there were so many people here. And I think I even repeated it so that I never heard it again, because she'd say that every now and then. And we do have to be careful what we say, because anybody can take it and run with it, like Harriet did in Emma. So I'm speaking of times when we have been criticized, insulted, or misjudged too far, to the point of it being damaging to the spirits. There is, or should be, a human dignity in every human being. I believe we're born with it, because haven't you seen a baby cry because someone was making fun of him, or someone was just going too far, or frowning at them? We're born with this feeling of dignity, human dignity. We are not animals, and every human being has a human dignity that commands proper treatment and respect. That is not saying that we deserve to be treated like we're royalty, although the Bible says we're a royal priesthood. That royalty means dignified and having good character. When mistreated too far, it is admirable to rise and make a proper defense. At first, this may seem inconsistent with forgiveness, but it is not if properly understood. Yes, and to the woman that doesn't do well with conflict, and who does, that just really is uncomfortable with conflict, and we want to just kind of shrink away and be quiet and just let them get away with it. If you see that people are labeling you, maligning you, and it's coming back to you over and over, then you will have to gently correct it. And I remember one lady said that she just quietly took one lady aside after years and years of being contradicted publicly, and just making it look like there was some kind of a fight going on when there wasn't, by this one lady's bad behavior. She took her aside and said, this is really bad for the church. It's really bad for my family. It's really bad for you and your family, and your husband and sons have a bad opinion of me, and I'd appreciate it if you'd quit talking to me in public, if you can't be nice. And that lady settled down after a while, actually. I couldn't get away with it, I don't think. When we rise to defend ourselves, we can still do so without bitterness or rancor. I didn't look that word up, but that's a nice homeschool word for you to look up, rancor, R-A-N-C-O-R. We can be forgiving even at the time we are speaking, but we can. I always like to forgive before I even start speaking, but it's only a matter of, being a homeschooler is just only a matter of imparting an education to them, educating them. And what did we used to call it? Edifying them. We're not bossing them, we're edifying them. In all fairness to ourselves, command fair treatment. We can, in all fairness to ourselves, command fair treatment. You're a person too. In doing this, we can earn respect for ourselves and also from our associates. This spirit of self-dignity will be explained in the next point of character. Interesting. A lot of people will say, oh, you have to earn respect from people, and that's why they don't respect you. You have to earn it. You can never be good enough for some people. You can't earn respect. The Bible commands that we give respect to certain people and respect all men everywhere and work in peace with them, but you can't earn it. It's yours to give voluntarily. It's theirs to give. But it says here something very interesting. When you assert yourself, when you're being treated unfairly and badly, it helps. It helps earn the respect because they are going to tread more lightly around you because it's so uncomfortable to hear you refute them. That's not going to put them at ease. And so the reason a lot of people trample on on other people is because they can, and because they don't get any kickback. They don't get anybody correcting them. So as a homeschooler, we're just giving them information. This spirit of self-dignity will be explained in the next point of character. Now, yesterday I read all about self-dignity, not ingratiating yourself, not groveling. And sometimes you'll get a person in life that really likes to use this technique of getting someone alone in a room and confronting them and then breaking them down and making them cry and then they feel happy, making them confess to something, making them break down and making them cry, and accuse them of something and listen to them defend themselves, and then finally the person realizes they're going to lose this battle, so they just apologize so they can get out of there. And some people delight in treating people like that, but if you ever get in that situation, and most women of vital years, like me, have decided we're not going to attend meetings anymore if it's going to be all about how good they are and how bad we are, that we would probably stay away from that sticky situation and not grovel. And that's very, very important. You don't have to be conceited, and you don't have to be uppity, and you don't have to have a sharp personality to be assertive. You just don't have to get down low and grovel and weep and try to get them to like you. You can use what Jesus said, say, let your yes be yes and your no be no. Say yes or no, but don't go on and on trying to justify yourself or anything like that. So I wanted to read that because last time we talked about how important it is not to act in an inferior position, not to behave in an inferior position. And sometimes I think that our posture and the posture of our children indicates their feeling about themselves, whether they feel inferior or not. And I've known people who slump because they're afraid that their height makes other people think that they are being superior. That is so sad. Well, now I have read that part, and I want to go on to this one that I'm liking so much, called Winsome Womanhood by Margaret Elizabeth Sangster. Now, the edition that I'm reading is revised and expanded by Shelley Noonan, the journal edition. You should get this and get it new. Go ahead and pay, whatever it costs to get it new, because you get on Thrift Books or any of these places and you try to get a used one, and they're dirty and in terrible shape. I just can't stand it. And so I had to send some back, and some of them where they reprinted them off of Google or someplace like that. The pages are kind of off, and then there's faded printing and stuff. So order yourself a brand new one if you want this. Actually, it's quite a small book, but Shelley Noonan, who revised it, has filled it up with a lot of journalistic type stuff. Did you know you could get a Jane Austen study journal? Interesting, isn't it? So last time I read to you the assignments in here, and it was you had to get a simple paper sewing pattern and learn how to use a needle or a machine, or go to a craft store and get a kit of some kind. And So I'm going to do some of these assignments this winter, because this winter I'll be pretty much left alone as people can't travel and the descendants can't come. So I'm going to give myself a course, and I'm going to give myself an assignment. And speaking of homeschooling and everything, I was very reluctant. In fact, I felt the stiffness come upon me when I saw her chapter 6, the higher education, because we who experienced the downfall of state education and government education realized how inadequate it was for when we got out. We really didn't have anything to speak of that we could do except go to another institution and be told what to do all day long, and we weren't given real skills, in my opinion. And most of the things that we were trained for became obsolete within a few years after our education. And so just showed how much time, and having homeschooled my own children, I understand, you can see how much time was wasted in the public schools, keeping everybody in there so long when it wasn't necessary at all. And what the alternative, what they were actually up to in there, was to retrain the mind to think differently than the Bible and the family and homestead and home living and things like that. So that many of the homesteaders' children, even that went to public school, didn't desire the homestead life at all, or just didn't develop the skills of the homestead, or didn't adopt their parents' lifestyle or beliefs. Is so sad. But when you're taken away all day long, you don't get to see what your parents are doing on the homestead, and you don't get to understand what the benefit of it is. But I read this, and I'd open it and I'd shut it. I don't know if I'm going to be able to read that. I don't know if let's skip that one. But then yesterday I decided to read it. And so if you'll just hear me out, you'll get a bit rankled at first, but then listen carefully to what she says. And it's written in 1900. So some obscure poet wrote, and it was Ambrose Rees, which is what she's put here in the front of this chapter. Education, that which discloses to the wise and disguises from the foolish their lack of understanding. Well, of course, the Bible doesn't use the word education. It talks about wisdom, knowledge, understanding, diligence, goodness, kindness, work, and things like that, which are character. And before I get into this chapter, I wanted to tell you something, because I've been discussing character with you, which is the basis of homeschooling, is character. You can go through all kinds of educational institutions and never understand character, never come out with it. And that's the one reason that I read to you The Fascinating Girl, because she had such good explanations of good character. And so before I continue with this other book, I want to read what she says about good character. She said, there are many other virtues of character. She's talking about dignity. That's one character quality. She says there are many other virtues of character. These are only 10 of the most essential. Let me see what the 10 were. I don't know what they were. Maybe you can rewind to a former video where I might have put that in there. And she had just listed 10 in her writings. I think I have found them. Okay, here they are. So character, self-mastery, that would be self-control. And she had a whole chapter on self-control. I really need to go back and read that. Unselfishness. And I can find lists in the New Testament of these qualities of character that you could acquire. Love and concern for others is number 3. And she has quite a chapter on that. Honesty. I could probably comment on a lot of these. Humility and righteousness. Moral courage. It means a firmness or determination to live what we believe. and not regard the pressures of others to persuade us otherwise. Forgiveness and dignity, human dignity. So I want to read a little bit more about what she said about how to acquire a beautiful character. And there are many other virtues of character. These are only 10 of the most essential. And remember, I had quoted them to you before from places like Galatians 5, the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, goodness, kindness, and Philippians 4:8, thinking on things that are good, lovely, pure, noble, and of good report. And was it 2 Peter 1:7 or 5? And that is, add to your faith virtue, and to your virtue knowledge, and to knowledge self-control, and to self-control brotherly love, etc. So there you have it all in the Bible already. But with homeschooling, you can sift it out, define it, write about it, talk about it, and practice it. If you're busy off doing assignments from other institutions, you're not going to have time to develop any of those things, and that's why I'm homeschooling you now. You can acquire a beautiful character in the same way you would acquire anything else, by diligent effort. However, with worthy character, it would be difficult to make any measure of progress without the assistance of earnest and daily prayer. Can you remember when you were 8 years old or 9 years old, and someone was harsh with you, and you began to cry and run upstairs to your bed and ask God to help you be a better person, and then come back down only to find out that the same person was still going to find fault with you, and you just couldn't figure it out? Well, here, I love this. You can't make any measure of progress without the assistance of earnest and daily prayer. But that is one thing we have to recognize, is there will be people who will target us. As you get more kind and more gentle, people think they can push you around, and they will target you and try to make you unhappy, make you angry, make you react. The goal is too high and the forces of opposition too strong to gain any real success without the guidance of God from day to day. You may be able to become a good pianist, a good tennis player, or a public speaker by persistence and exercise alone, but the perfection of a wonderful character is not entirely within our reach without faith in God and His divine assistance. Now, who would object to that? This is The Fascinating Girl by Helen Andelin. He will be your strength in times of trouble and temptation, and will lend to you His Spirit to mellow your character, as well as to give you strength and honor. Since there are many virtues worth attaining, it will be best to take them one at a time. Decide which is your weakest point and work on that for a month or two, or as long as is necessary to make some real progress. Then go on to another and back again to your weaker ones. You will be aware of improvement as you begin to draw others to you by a better personality. Now, speaking of personality, I remember when, I don't know if it would have been the higher education or psychology or whatever, persuaded people to enhance the personality, and in doing so, they put the character in the background. So you'd get these little studies on, how some people are more lively and energetic and friendly, and other people are more reserved and all that, and they'd call it personality, and they put the character in the background. Everybody knows how to analyze someone's personality, but people don't understand character. That was just shoved under the rug while they promoted this different personality thing, and so we're going to get back to what matters is character. And the personality was something that was invented by, the study of the personality was something totally different. But it was character that we need to have a focus on. Is good character beyond your reach? Do you fear that the attainment of a fine character is beyond the realms of possibility for you? Your character is not fixed or unchangeable. You see, this is where psychology, modern psychology, disagrees with biblical psychology. It says your character is not fixed or unchangeable. Well, so does the Bible. The Bible says you don't have to be stuck with bad habits and bad attitudes. It teaches you to renew your mind and to cleanse your heart. And Philippians 4:8 tells you how to do it. Think on things that are good. And if you couldn't help it and you were stuck on thinking dour, sour thoughts, why would we have the admonition to think on things that are good and to look away to what's good and bright? Your character is not fixed or unchangeable. It was made to grow, to unfold until you become more in line with what the scriptures say. You can become a worthy person. It is up to each person to believe in this goal and his God-given potential to reach it. We never know what is in our character. It is always more or less unexplored, an unexplored mine, which there are depths we never dreamed of. To be sure, we are familiar with only a few surface details which trick us into imagining we know ourselves. But let a crisis come, let us be thrown upon our own resources, let a dear one meet with disaster, or let a great responsibility be suddenly thrust upon us, and there arises from the unexplored depths below the surface qualities of character which neither ourselves nor others ever suspected. On such occasions we seem to acquire a different personality. Well, yes. Have you seen this where maybe there's things aren't quite going as well for someone and they become more bad-tempered? Yes, that shows the true personality when things are hard or when they are pushed. That shows their true personality. And I can remember years ago, somebody was angry at another woman, I think, years ago. And someone said, well, that's completely out of character for her personality. And the woman said, no, she's held that in latently for a long time. She's only polite, because things were going well. And, that's true. Sometimes it's easier to be polite when everybody's nice and when things are nice and when there's enough food in the cupboard and you've got some money in the bank, but then become cross with people when they aren't going well. If you will deliberately explore the depths of your own character, you'll be surprised to learn of the latent qualities which you can bring to the surface and of the injustice you have committed in underrating yourself. You will perceive that you have been smothering your real character under a wooden-like exterior that was caused by a lack of belief in yourself. You will realize that the dedicated effort you can improve your character. But you may insist, I am just an ordinary human being with serious faults of character. I can't aspire to the living form of a benediction. I can never hope with my ordinary character. So she said, you may not have done anything in the past which deserves particular note, but how do you know what you will do in the future? How do you know that your character, if it were put to a serious test, wouldn't prove worthy? Look at the millions of ordinary girls who have become our world's extraordinary mothers. Most of them had to grow, had to be put to the test before they became good mothers. But their potential was there during their youth. They only became great mothers. There have also been wives who have proven themselves to be an inspiration for their husbands' success and greatness. Their husband's refuge and his strength in times of trouble, his joy in times of triumph. These were once ordinary girls, whom no one particularly recognized as noble in character. Each one of us has within ourselves the seeds of a fine character, if we but believe in ourselves and work to bring it into being. Now, that's the great thing about these work study books is they put things like that in there that you can write. And at the beginning, they will have you to list all the things that you want to improve. And then at the end, you get to go back and look and see how far you've come. So I'm going to read right now out of Winsome Womanhood, which I like a lot, this chapter on education, which may rankle some of you, but Just hear it out. It's not what you think. She's not advising that people go away and commit themselves to being in an institution, paying a high price for something that they might not be able to use. So we hear a great deal about modern scholarship. Now, she's writing in 1900 when the public schools first came into existence and some of the colleges. Before that, most things were learned at home or with a tutor for the ordinary person. We hear a great deal about modern scholarship and higher education. Sometimes there seems to be an impression in the air that there never was any learning worth speaking of except that it be in a college. Now, there cannot be a greater mistake than to suppose that the facilities and appliances and extensive and extended opportunities have made us giants, whereas those who went before us were pygmies. So what she's saying is, people assumed that these great institutions would make them better people, more successful, more knowledgeable, and skilled. Well, before the institutions came along, they were just pygmies. They were just short in their knowledge. A glance at our libraries shows us volumes filled with research. The masters of literature and art still color our thoughts and demand our attention. Still are there old men and gray-haired women, she's speaking in 1900, who are well and liberally educated, though the methods of their youth were somewhat different from those which their grandchildren follow. The remembrance that, not the amount that one studies, but the degree of integration into one's thinking and knowledge is the important thing. And that's one reason we homeschooled, is because there's no guarantee that they're sitting there behind a desk for, see, how many hours a day? 5 hours a day? It guarantees that they have absorbed it all, or that they have absorbed any of it. Better to teach a little, repeat it throughout the days, and let it sink in, than to have them do page 1 to 10 the first day, and then, have the schedule. Better to know and to understand life. Colleges largely mold and influence men and women and strongly impress their ideology and on their graduates. See, it's their program, it's their ideology, it's their belief system that you're going to be forced to think about, because if you want to pass, if you want to qualify, then it's their program and their curriculums. And yet, there may be culture to be found outside the college walls. How many of us have been to colleges and wish that we had used the time much better? And once you get into homeschooling, you realize there was so much more delightful and quality things that we could have filled our minds with and used our time for. Our time is so valuable. To think of the years spent in somebody else's training. What a shame. To the person who is not able to go on with their education, let me say that all of life is an academy. There's so many homeschools named Life's Academy. On every hand, there are gates ajar. There is a gate that stands ajar. Awaiting only the resolute touch of a man in earnest to push them open. One determined upon well-educated need never despair in realizing his ideal. For one thing, books are the best possible as well as the most friendly teachers. You still have to be careful of those books. I have wall-to-wall books. I was a homeschooler, and I've got the books to prove it, because this was before the internet. Sometimes just to get a little information, maybe a couple of pages, we'd have to buy the whole book, and I'd leave a bookmark in it so we'd know where that was. So I'm still going through all those things, and in care of books, if they have been stored a long time and they smell bad and you don't want to keep them around and you can't get the smell out, you can always go online and order a brand new printed one to replace it and then toss the other one. That's what I'm doing. Except for the books that the children wrote in. I want to keep that. You may have very little time for a book, but use the little. be careful also not to let book learning be, because it can become a passive activity, and you'll always have your nose in a book. That's not life. And a lot of people are book smart, but not people smart. That's what they used to tell us. During the 5 or 10 minutes in the morning, the spell borrowed from your luncheon hour, read with intention. I looked up that word spell and why we use it for spelling words. There was spelling and there was grammar, and those two words were just really weird where their root words came from. But there's no other way to describe how to spell a word. I don't know what other word you'd use. If you come up with a good one, let me know. A genuine volume of essays or poetry or history, and at the end of 3 months you will be surprised at the progress you made. I must caution the enthusiastic student against the prodigal use of sight by poring over small print in places where the light is imperfect. Well, when we were in an old farmhouse in Texas out on a ranch, we noticed that the light came in just right in the morning at a certain window and just right in the afternoon at a certain window. So we put chairs there so that the light would come over the children's shoulders if they were doing something with their eyes, whether reading or something else. One's own common sense dictates care of those youthful and loyal servants, the eyes. Books are to be had in marvelously inexpensive editions. If they are bought one by one, they are a wise investment for one's own home and one's life. If they are borrowed from a library, they are equally valuable friends. The person who reads daily, according to a pre-arranged plan. I have a book that I'm not able to, I used to be able to, like when I was a teenager. Of course, now I'm only 15, when I was younger. Get a book and just read it in a day, couldn't put it down, carried it under my coat, put it, somewhere where I could read it, and just couldn't put it down until it was finished. And now I'm lucky to get a paragraph read a day or even a sentence because there's so much to do, and my mind, I have a hard time settling down. If they are borrowed from the library, they are equally valuable friends. I quit the library years ago. You never know where those books have been. Plus, they started taking some of the older, more wholesome books out and putting modern stuff in, and also I didn't want to take my children in there. They had what did they call those? They used to call them pulp fiction, and it's because they're made of pulp paper, and they had flashy covers and stuff that just weren't fit to look at for young children. And they have them in the lower, when you enter some of the libraries, there's all that stuff there, all their novels and everything. So I just quit the library and I built my own, and I ordered things, and I had my own library, and our kids never had any lack. If they wanted a book on something, they would figure out how to get it. We'd get it for ourselves, and then they you don't have to reuse someone's old school books. You have your own with your own fingerprints on them. The person who reads daily according to a prearranged plan and not merely for amusement cannot fail to become cultivated. There are among our chief literary favorites men who never saw the inside of a college, but whose books are the lingering delight of thousands. We need not fear that we will be ill-educated, even if our college must be the real world of work. So, ladies, I want to quit pretty soon, and I hope that you can have done a few things while you listened. And I wanted to share with you, because I chose this pretty pink teacup, I also chose a tea. Well, it's a tisane, and it has just natural things, and it's called Strawberry Fields, and my daughter gave this to me, and I love it, and it's by Clipper, and she orders it for me. But isn't that a pretty pink tea bag? And if you don't like this stuff, just put it in a pan with hot water, and it'll make your house smell wonderful. So tea is good for many different things. So, ladies, I hope that you are doing well today, as well can be expected. And if you're not living where you want to live and you're hoping for something better, I hope you have great plans for the improvement of where you live in good practice, so that when you get ready to find your the home that's more adequate for you, that you will not have any problem adjusting. So until I see you again, thank you so much for your comments, and I hope to answer some of your questions later maybe and read some more to you. And so God bless you, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.